Hello guys, I'm back from another video and today we're talking about what if Deku was in RWBY. So in the last video we talked about how, well, after, their investigation, their investigation in, juniors, which is apparently the name of the bar that they gone to, they would start hearing explosions and where Izuku would basically tell, you know, um, the girl that's basically with them, or at least two girls specifically, Yang and also, what is her name? Sorry about that. Anyway, Yang and Neptune, or in this case, Amphitrite, which is the canon name that I'm going to be giving her. Because the reason why I'm not going to be saying Amphitrite all the time is because it sounds confusing. So I'm just going to call her, Neptune. So after arriving there, and basically Neptune didn't really come with them. So yeah. So after arriving there, they would see Roman Torchwick basically inside of the new Atlas robot known as the Athanasian Paladin, as Ruby, Blake, and Weiss are basically fighting him as Izuku would basically jump in, transforming into a Susano. And, after a bit of fighting, he would basically, try to escape, but unfortunately Izuku would try to stop him, but, pretty much unfortunately, again, somebody would basically jump in and basically save him. And this person was, the person that Izuku's been talking with for a few weeks now, or a few months now, aka our lovely little cinnamon roll over there, aka, Neapolitan. As after Neapolitan basically arrives, Izuku was just like, what? As she would basically tell him to basically try not to hurt her father. Or, even though that they're basically like sort of friends, she will not let her father basically get killed by him, or get captured. Which Izuku was surprised after hearing that, that this guy is apparently her father. And so, after, distracting him a little bit with her illusions, she would basically, escape. After doing so, Izuku would just slump down as, some of the police officers would basically arrive, including, Atlas soldiers. So, after a bit of talking and also talking to, to Jane's Ironwood, I meant Jane Ironwood, aka, General Ironwood, and also a bit of interactions with them, he would basically start leaving with, the rest of, Team RWBY. And so, after doing so, he would finally go back to his dorms where he was met with his teammates. Sorry about that, I just sneezed a little. Anyway, continuing on with the episode. So, after talking to, Jane Ironwood, aka, General Ironwood, they would basically go back home, where he was met with his, his teammates, as they would ask him to basically make, dinner for them. And so after making dinner, he would start preparing to basically make, the pastries for, for apparently there's going to be apparently there's going to be a dance party or a prom night today, or at least, next week. And so, after being told of this by, some of the, members, he would start preparing to basically make, some of the pastries. And so, after making them with the help of, his teammates, he would basically gets ready to sleep. But before he can, one of them, specifically, Skyla, would ask him a question. If she, if she could basically, could be his, date for the for the dance, which Izuku would gladly comply, which she was pretty happy, and also some of her teammates would basically support them, even though they were somewhat jealous as well. And so after doing so, we basically see them basically getting ready for tomorrow, which is which they're going to be planning to get their stuff, mostly some clothing for the party soon. And so, after waking up, they would start moving to go to, to the mall. As while Izuku is basically going by himself with, Skyla basically, going her own separate way, Izuku would get attacked by a few White Fang members, which Izuku would thankfully defeat them. And also, before they can actually be brought to the authorities, they would basically escape, which, kind of annoyed Izuku. But either way, after basically leaving with, Skyla, they would basically arrive back home and would finally get some sleep. So, yeah, that's basically what happened last episode. And so, let us talk about what happens next, ladies and gents. And before we actually start, Happy New Year's, everybody! Let's just say it was pretty chaotic for me. Like, seriously. like, when I was waking up for like, for New Year's, I heard the sound of like a large, engine basically roaring. And when I looked back, I saw somebody using a freaking chainsaw. Like, why? Why use a freaking chainsaw on New Year's Eve? Like, seriously, it gave me fucking. It almost made me have a freaking heart attack. But either way, Happy New Year's. Hope this, year is, not as bad as like last time. Actually, I'm hoping it will be like last time, at least, so I won't attend school. Anyway, continue on. So yeah, so let us get to, let's get to the actual episode, shall we, ladies and gents? So, we currently see, Izuku basically wearing his brand new, tuxedo for the party today. As in, the dance party today. As while Izuku's basically wearing his brand new, his brand new looking, tuxedo while wearing some gloves, he would see, Skyla basically coming into his room, as she would say, "Hey, Izuku, can I," as he would say this, "Oh, you can come in now, or you finished dressing up," he would say, as after walking in, Izuku would notice her basically wearing a beautiful blue dress, with purple and a bit of like, silver, which Izuku was, pretty much impressed with her look. And not only that, her makeup was was a bit on point, as it would cause Izuku to basically, become a little bit red and, red on the face, as she would say this. "Aw, you really like me that much?" he would say, as he would say this. Yeah, he would say. He would basically laugh a little, as after saying that, he would look over and would see the rest of his teammates basically wearing their own dresses, as Dove would say this. "Hey Zuki, what do you think?" she would say, as she would basically, show off her dress, as he would say this. "You look nice, Dove," he would say, as he would look over to, to Rachel, as instead of like wearing a, typical like, dress, instead she's wearing like a, fine tailored suit, similar to, to a man. But she would also have a bit of accents of like, of a girly-ish side to her. More specifically, she seems to be wearing, um, instead of like, simple like slacks, instead it's like a skirt. As she would say this. "So, what do you think?" she would say. As he would say this. "You look wonderful," he would say. As she would say this. Thanks," she would say. As Izuku would say this. "Now, let's get going," he would say. As all of them would agree and would so start leaving. So, as while Izuku's basically leaving with them, he would notice some of the other members of like, some of his other friends. Like, for example, to team, what is that called again? To team Juniper and also to team, RWBY. As RWBY would say this. "Hey, Izuku," she would say, as he would say this. "Oh, hey, RWBY," he would say, as she would say this. "So, I was wondering, do you have like a date for the," as he would say this. "Well, actually I do," he would say. As after hearing that, everybody would just be dumbstruck, mostly the girls. As Ren would say this. "Huh, nice," he would say. As he would say this. "Yeah, let's go," he would say. As, wait for a second. As Skyla would basically start, grabbing onto Izuku's hand. Not really hand, but more like his arm. As she's basically clinging onto him. As he would say this. Let's go to the party," he would say. As she would say this. "Yeah, let's go," she would say. Absolutely, "I absolutely can't wait to try out your treats," she would say. As he would say this. "I guess," he would say. "After all, you did help me," he would say. As after saying that, all of them would basically start leaving. Mostly, Team Colorless. AKA, Izuku's team. Well, for, Team RWBY and, some of Team Juniper, except for, Mr. Lai Ren over there, well, they're pretty much like, dumbstruck and also heartbroken. And they will start becoming a little bit angry, saying to themselves, "Why the is that girl with him?" Like all of them would say out loud. As would cause Ren to just go like, "Dude, just let him have his fun," he would say. As, all of the girls would just, would just instantly glare at him. As, Ren would just, move away a little bit. As all of them would basically start, walking to, to the party, just like a little bit saddened, but also quite angry. So, yeah. So, we go to the party. As currently Izuku is basically with the others, as he's basically setting up some of the, pastries. As we also currently see, some of the members of, Team Civic, or at least I think that's the pronunciation of their team name. Let me just check again. As while Izuku is basically setting up some of his, well, some of the scrolls that he contained some of the, well, pastries in, he would see, Team Civic basically there, wearing their, well, their, prom suits. Some of them basically having, regular old suits, while for Coco, well, it's a bit really, really pretentious, let's just say that. She seems to be wearing like a, a orange to, almost like brownish, skirt with, a beautiful, necklace that is colored gold with a, within, a bright orange gem in the center. As she seems to be wearing her signature glasses and beret, as she would say this. Ah, Izuku, she would say, as he would say this. Oh, hey Coco, he would say, as she would say this. So, I was wondering if you're, currently, have somebody to basically dance with, she would say, as he would say this. Well, I do have a date, he would say, as she would say this. Wait, what? She would say with a surprise. As after hearing that, Coco would just, be wide-eyed after hearing that. As currently in the background, Velvet was also I meant Velvet, is basically surprised as well after hearing that, as you would see this. Well, yeah, I sort of, got asked out, so I decided to, took her up on her offer. Took her up on her, offer, he would say. As she would say this, say this. Wait, who was it? She would say, with a, somewhat, surprised tone, as he would say this. Well, it's my new teammate, he would say. As she would say, wait, what? She would say, as, well, Sayo would basically, come up to them, as she would say this. Hello there, she would say. So, you must be my upperclassman, she would say. But I'm really sorry, but, Izuku over here, she would basically just like, grab onto Izuku's arm, as she would say this. Well, he's already taken, she would say, as she would basically, do a little bit of a light joke, as she would basically stick out her tongue, causing Coco to become a little bit angry, with a, visible tick mark on her head, as she would say this. I'm moving, she would say, as after saying that, she would basically tell the rest of her group to basically start to leave, as Velvet would just be looking at them, as Velvet seems to be, well, not in a normal mental state for some odd reason. He would notice her basically having these heart-shaped eyes for a second, but Izuku would just ignore it, as after doing so, he would basically take off his glove, as he would basically prick his finger. After spraying a bit of blood on the, onto the seal, it would cause the, pastries would basically just like burst out of it instantly. As currently nearby, well, somebody, more specifically Ozpin basically sees this in a nearby balcony, as he would say this. What an interesting trick, he would say. I should probably tell him to teach me how to do that. If it's probably, or it might be probably just be his semblance. If so, then, he would say with a somewhat disappointed tone, as after saying that, he would start looking at the party, as he would say this. Well, I can't wait to try out some of his pastries, he would say. As after saying that, we go back to Izuku as he fully set up some of the pastries. Some, some cookies on the side, which is for, obviously for, some others. But he reserved, some cookies, more specifically some special ones, for, RWBY, which is her favorite, which is just like, chocolate chips. As for, for the others, he would also make some other types of treats, like, for example, two, different, different types of pastries to, well, some more savory ones, like, for example, shepherd's pie, and also some, some other stuff, like, for example, like some, I almost said something so wrong. Oh, God, no. I meant apple pie. I meant not, no, that sounds so wrong. Why? No. Anyway, continuing on, after basically setting them up, he would look over and would see some of his teammates basically trying out some of the other food there. As, one of them would say this, specifically, Rachel. Hey, Izuku, do you have any extras, she would say, as he would say this. Oh, yeah, he would say, as he would basically bring out a few plates of, like, of pastries, more specifically. I don't really know what to call them, or I can't remember what they're actually called. They're, in my school, right, they're called, like, cheese pockets, and they're basically, like, bread that literally has some, like, cheese inside. But the cheese also tastes a bit sweet to me. I don't know why, but it's super good and addicting. That is why I stopped eating them. So, yeah, just imagine something like that. As, after, grabbing some of these cheese pockets, she would basically start chowing down. As Izuku would start to laugh a little bit, seeing her face, as she would say this. What? She would say, as her face is still pretty much stuffed with some of the, cheese pockets, as he would say this. Oh, nothing, he would say. As after saying that, he would look over and would see some of the other, students there. As they're currently drooling and smelling, the deliciousness that is, Izuku's, pastries. As Izuku would start to think, yeah, there's probably gonna be a freaking, I don't know, a freaking temper tantrum if anybody, doesn't get any of his, any of his treats, any of his treats, he would say to himself. As after saying that, he would start looking around and would decide to basically go into a little corner. So, after doing so, he would start, sitting down and would start waiting for the festivities to basically start. Wait for a second. Sorry about that. So, as we currently see Izuku basically waiting for the festivities to start, as one of the people there, specifically an upperclassman, would basically see this. Ha! Welcome everybody, he would say, as some of the people around them would basically, or at least some of the people around would basically start, coming up there, as he would say this. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the first ever, prom in, wait for a second. The first ever prom in, Beacon. It's quite relaxing to see everybody here, including some of our, lower classmen, he would say, as he would look towards, some of the, lower classmen, like, for example, RWBY, to Izuku, and many others, as he would say this. Now, before we start, how about a few words to the rating champion of, he would say, as he would look over towards, Pyra, to the rating champion of the, what is that called? The invincible girl herself, Pyranika, he would say. As after saying that, Pyranika would basically walk on stage, as she would basically give out a speech to every single, first year in Beacon. As after saying the speech, she would basically tell, everybody to basically have a grand old time. And after saying that, he would basically tell everybody to basically try out some of the food there, which are from the, lower, not really lower, but more like, the first years, and also some of the, third years, and also some second years. As after saying that, everybody would start jumping towards Izuku's food instantly. Like, even one basically tried to use his weapon to basically try to kill another one to get the fucking, I don't know, like pretzel or something. As after seeing that, you would think, with great power comes great responsibility, he would say to himself. As after saying that, we go back to, to everybody else. Specifically, wait for a second. We go to a different perspective. In this case, some of the, other, people there. More specifically, Jean. As Jean would say this. She would say, as, Pyra would say this. What is it, Jean? She would say. As she would say this. It's pretty sad that Izuku is going to be, dancing with somebody else, she would say. As she would say this. Specifically, Pyra. Wait. Why is that exactly, she would say? As she would say this. Well, you see, I sort of started becoming a little bit, interested in him, she would say. After saying that, she would start becoming a little bit panicked, as, Jean would, notice this, as she would say, wait, why are you, as she would say this, oh, nothing, she would say, as she would just look away, as she would say this to herself. So, she's interested in Izuku as well. Even though she's my friend, but Izuku's still Izuku, she would say. As she would say this. Maybe we should, I don't know, maybe we can share him, she would say to herself. As she would say this. Yeah, maybe, she would say. As after saying that, or at least saying that to herself, Jean would just be confused there. As she's still pretty much playing with her hair a little bit. As for, Nora, she's currently, chowing down on some of his treats. Which, well, Ren is basically trying out one of his, pastries, as he would say. He would say, Nora doesn't really change, he would say to himself. As, after saying that, we go, to Team RWBY, as Team RWBY is basically, basically just like by themselves. Well, not really. I mean, not, some of the, some of their members, like, for example, Blake, and also, well, what is her name again? Fucking damn it! And also Yang seemed to be gone. As after, noticing this, well, let's just say, Ruby is basically just like, old there by herself. I mean, technically, there's still, well, wise, but it's not really helping because the relationship is still sort of strained. I mean, they're sort of becoming best friends right now. Sort of. As both of them are currently, thinking to themselves, God dang it, why did Izuku have to have a date already? She would say to, like, both of them would say to themselves. As after saying that, we basically go back to Izuku. As Izuku's just there, basically, talking to some people, mostly, to second year, saying how impressive he was during their, during his, initiation, where he created a freaking meteor that literally, well, attracted some of the Grim, or at least, the Grim that were basically around them at the time. As you would ask him what the heck is his semblance, which he would explain, which, all of them were pretty much interested in. But he would realize that maybe they're using this, well, using this, day to basically get information about, some of the, first years so they can get an advantage. But, he would decide to, just ignore it for now and would basically tell them, some of his secrets. But, sort of lie. Well, basically, he's basically like, telling them half-truths. Like, for example, how saying that he's able to, use his, well, Naraka path to basically, like, suck the souls of people. But but he didn't tell them, but, that when he basically goes inside of the mouth of the Naraka, or at least the, King of Hell, well, he would basically heal up from any injury. Yeah, and it's not helping that he basically has super regeneration. So, yeah, wait for a second. So, as, basically after, a bit of talking to them, and also some, half-truths about his powers, he would basically, stop talking to them altogether, as he would just be there, by himself, basically, by the punch. As, while he was there, he would notice, some of the team, one of the, some of the team, well, what was his name? Some of, like, team, I think that, yeah, Civic, yeah. As some of Team Civic are basically there just, doing their own thing, as one of them would basically approach him. Specifically, Velvet, as she would say this. Oh, hello Izuku, she would say, as Izuku would say this. Oh, hey Velvet, he would say, as she would say this. Is it true that you're, dating, somebody right now? Or at least, going out with somebody for this, well, for the prom, she would say, as he would say this. Yeah, but, we're pretty much, good with each other now. It was pretty rocky at the start when we first met, but still, he would say, she would say this. Oh, I see, she would say. As, at this point, it's starting to become a little bit awkward, as he would say this. Anyway, I'm gonna be going back for now, he would say. As she would say this. Oh, right, she would say, as after saying that, he would start leaving. So, after leaving, he would go back to his team, more specifically, one of his members, aka the one that he's currently, going on a date with, aka, the one that he's going out, go out to prom, is, well, is, Skyla, as Skyla would say this. Oh, hey, Izuku, she would say, as Izuku would say this. Hey, Skyla, he would say, as she would say this. So, why not, go outside for now? It's starting to become a little bit boring, she would say, as he would say this. Yeah, I guess so, he would say. As after saying that, they would start leaving, the, venue, as they would start, going outside, and, they would start looking up at the stars. As after, looking up at the sky, he would say this. Whoa. This place kind of looks beautiful, he would say. Wait for a second. Sorry about that. Anyway, continuing on, as Izuku would say this. This place looks pretty nice when it's nighttime, he would say. You can absolutely see the stars, he would say. As, she would say this. Specifically, well, Skyla. As she would say this. Yeah, it is, she would say. As after saying that, she would basically, lean onto Izuku's, well, shoulder, as she would say this. Hey, Izuku, when we become, official hunters, can we please stay together, she would say, as he would say this. I guess he would say, as after saying that, both of them would start looking at each other. Like, they would start looking at, their eyes. Like, both their eyes, or at least, you basically get it. As, you know, they would start looking at each other's souls at this point, as she would say this. I love you, she would say, as she would say this. Yeah, I love you, he would say, as they would start leaning in closer, and closer, closer, as they would start leaning into a kiss, and so their lips would touch, as they would start kissing, pretty deeply to say the least, as they would start exploring their mouths, like both their mouths, as Izuku is basically trying to fight for dominance, as Izuku would basically, basically dominate her in the kissing, causing her to basically submit. As after a while, basically, well, I'm not gonna say it because it's going to be, it's gonna be doomed for me and my channel if I say that. Well, after a while of doing that, he would notice, one of his friends, aka, RWBY, basically going somewhere, as he would say this to himself. Probably something important, he would say. But, unbeknownst to them, she was basically following somebody. As this somebody was a woman basically with black hair and the same reddish eyes, wearing almost like a, actually, it kind of resembles like, Catwoman's, outfits, or at least, some outfits. Just imagine something like that, as this woman was Cinderfall. So, wait for a second. Sorry about that, as, after a while of basically kissing, he would basically, let go because he needs to breathe, as after doing so, she would say this. Specifically, Skyla, as she would say this. That felt, as he would say this. Good, he would say, said Izuku, as both of them would start looking at each other once again, as she would say this. Izuku, she would say, as he would say this. Yeah? He would say, as she would say this. Thank you. Thank you for basically saving me from Carden, she would say, as he would say this. No pleasure, he would say, as after saying that, they would start looking at each other once again, as they would return to kissing. Somebody nearby, or at least, somebody that's nearby. Currently we see, well, an interesting, a pretty interesting sight. We see, well, Coco there, basically watching this. Basically seeing, Izuku basically being kissed by her. As she was pretty much pissed. Wait for a second. Sorry about that. Anyway, continuing on. As we currently see Coco a bit, angry to say the least. She was basically watching the whole thing. Seeing, Izuku basically kissing this girl. This girl that basically claims to be Izuku's, well, not really girlfriend, but, it seems like it. As she was pretty much pissed. She wanted Izuku when they actually first met. Mostly because she does care for, for Coco, not Coco, I meant Velvet, and after seeing him basically defending her from, from Carden, well, she was pretty much, thinking to herself that he's perfect. But after seeing that Izuku's now getting it on with, with one of Team Cardinal's, or at least used to be Team Cardinal's, members, well, she was pretty much pissed, saying to herself, what the hell, she would say, as she would start, getting out of there, basically pissed off. So, going back to Izuku. As we go back to Izuku, basically after, having a bit of a grand old time with, Skyla, you would start going back inside the venue and would see, a huge dance, a dance number basically happening. Specifically, the entirety of, like, team, what's it called? The entirety of Team Juniper is basically, doing a little dance number while Izuku is basically there saying to himself, huh, I didn't know that Ren can actually dance, he would say to himself, because, we go to a little flashback. As this flashback would basically show Izuku basically with, wait for a second, with Nora and also Rin. As, Ren is basically there, basically trying to dance, while Izuku is just there, just like trying to cheer him on. Well, for, Nora, she's basically there with Izuku, as both of them are basically like sitting together. As, Ren is trying to dance, basically trying to like do like a, how do I do it? Like, how do I say this? Like this like simple dance number, as he's absolutely failing. As Izuku would start to laugh a little bit, saying, "Ha, take that, Ren." See, he would say, as, Ren would say this. "Oh, like you can do better," he would say, as he would say this. "Oh, really?" he would say, as he would start stretching his, muscles, as he would say this. "Watch this," he would say, as he would start dancing a little bit. As this dance was, pretty simple, but also quite, magnificent to say the least. His movements were almost like water, basically like moving in a flowing motion. As after a while basically dancing, he would basically stop, as he would say this. "So what do you think?" he would say. As Ren would just be, slack-jawed, while, Nora's basically like clapping for him, as he would say this. Specifically Ren. "Well, that was," he would say, as he would say this. "Yeah, I know," he would say, as after saying that, we go back to, to the present day, as Izuku would say this. "Maybe I should try out in dancing," he would say. "Wanna join me?" he would say, as, Skylar would say this. "Guess so," she would say, as after saying that, she would basically, going on the dance floor with, his, lovely date, aka, Skyla. As both of them would start to dance, as the dance would basically would be similar to, flamenco, a little bit. The reason why Izuku knows this is because, during Island, this is sort of like, a sort of like, how do I say this? Yes, a little bit of like a a different like timeline, difference. Where during the time Island, Island, back in the My Hero Academia world, he was basically trying to practice dancing with, Uraka, as Uraka decided to go for, flamenco dancing, which, was a bit confusing at the start, but thankfully Izuku, was able to like learn it in a few days, with, Uraka basically, doing most of the dancing, but Izuku was able to do enough that, some people would basically notice. Back to the present, as Izuku's basically doing a bit of like a flamenco dance with, with, Skyla, as Skyla was a bit impressed seeing his dance moves. As after a bit of like dancing, he would basically, grab her, bridal style, and would basically do one final, move, where he would basically throw her up in the sky, as he would basically grab her by the waist, and, like that typical, like, what is that called again? I don't really know that, that move or pose, but it's basically like this. So, imagine the finishing pose, something like this. And so, after doing that, most of the people there were basically clapping, including, some of the team, well, not really some, but more like one member of, like, Team Juniper, which is, Ren. Well, the other members are currently glaring at, Skyla in, Killer Intent. But for the others, mostly, some of the other members of, like, Team Colorless, aka, Dove, and also, Rachel, they're basically, cheering, they're basically cheering on, Skyla. As after the dance, he would basically, put her up on her feet, as he would say this. "So, how do you feel about that?" he would say, as she would say this. "Huh, a bit dizzy," she would say. Guess I'll just go stay over there," she would say, as he would say this. "Yeah, I guess," he would say, as after saying that, he would start leaving with Skyla. And so, the night would basically go on, as everybody's basically enjoying the treats that they gotten from, Izuku. As after doing so, the party would basically end as everybody's basically leaving. But then Izuku would notice that Ruby's basically been, long overdue, as he would notice her basically not there, as he would say this to one of her teammates, specifically, Blake. "Hey, Blake, where's Ruby?" he would say, as she would say this. "Well, apparently she had to go somewhere," so, as he would say this. "Oh, I see, then, if you, find her, maybe tell her that I wanted to talk to her for a while. Mostly about, like, the cookies that I saved for her." As after saying that, she would say this. "Oh, just give it to me, I'll just give it to her back at, back at our dorms," she would say. As he would say this. Sure," he would say. As after saying that, he would basically grab the plate of cookies that were reserved for, for Ruby, but some of them were taken, As in some, I mean almost all of it, but thankfully Izuku, gotten some extras, as after, basically giving it to Blake, he would basically say goodbye to Blake, as Blake would basically see Izuku basically leaving. After seeing Izuku leave, she would say, she would just basically sigh, as after saying so, she would basically start leaving with the rest of her team, except for RWBY. So, after that, everybody's basically, back at home, as everybody's basically just like, relaxing, basically changing back to their normal clothes, as Izuku would say this. Well, that was tiring, he would say, as, Rachel would say this. Yeah, I do have to agree, but still, it was pretty fun, she would say. Especially the little, dance that you had with, with Skyla, she would say. As Skyla would say this. Yeah, it was absolutely fun, she would say, as she would start, laughing a little bit, as he would say this. Yeah, Anyway, I should probably get some sleep. As after saying that, everybody would agree, and so everybody would start going back to their, dorm room. As in, their proper dorm room. And so everybody would basically go onto their beds, as so we're going to be ending this episode right off here. Sort of. We're going to be moving to a different perspective. So, we go to a different perspective. In this case, Cinderfall. As Cinderfall would say this. Yes, my mistress, she would say. I finished up the task. Now, the defense systems of Beacon are basically lowered enough that we can easily get in some interesting, fellas, she would say. As the woman would say this. Good. Now, get ready because soon Beacon will fall, she would say. As she would say this. Yes, my mistress, she would say. As after seeing that, she would basically start leaving. As for the woman on the other side, she would say this. Soon, Ozpin, you will pay with your life. And as for you, Mr. Izuku Midoriya, she would say, as she would basically bring up a picture of, or at least an image of Izuku, as she would say this. Soon, you'll be right by my side as my king, she would say. As after saying that, she would basically, grab the picture and would put it, right next to her. And so, we basically end off the episode right off there. So, yeah, that is basically going to be the end of this episode. And so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!